Thank you, thank you. The following is one of my voiceover demos. If you're a voiceover artist and you would like to advertise one of your demos on my podcast, please send an MP3 to thedrill12, all one word, at gmail.com. That's thedrill12 at gmail.com. Back in a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Caesar's Palace for 12 rounds of boxing. In the red corner, from Los Angeles, California, wearing the red trunks with the gold trim, weighing in at 125 pounds, the lightweight champion of the world, Danny Little Red Lopez. Well, Bill, our winners get a home theater receiver. That's right. Experience the full potential of high-definition video with this 72-channel digital home theater receiver from Yamaha. But wait, that's not all. They also get a 5.1-channel surround sound system from Mirage. With 5 palm-sized speakers and a compact subwoofer cube, the MX 5.1 brings you huge immersive sound with Mirage's omnipolar technology. All from the Spiegel catalog, Chicago, Illinois, 60609. And they're taking closer order as down the stretch they come. Mr. Hot Stuff has 3 lengths to make up with chocolate candy last. On the rail, take the points behind that gallant son with chocolate candy gaining on the outside. In the lead is Pioneer of the Nile being tackled by chocolate candy. They're neck and neck as they come to the wire. And Pioneer of the Nile holds off chocolate candy and wins the Santa Anita Derby. And now, on your feet, time to greet holder of 14 NBA titles, your home team, your Los Angeles Lakers. Number 3 at 6'8", 5th year out of UCLA, playing forward, Trevor Ariza. Starting at center, number 17 at 7 feet, 4th year out of St. Andrews High School, Andrew Bynum. And at guard, number 24, 6'6", 13th season out of Loyal Marion High School, Kobe Bryant.
My nephew has HD-ADD. High definition attention deficit disorder. But when he does, it's unbelievably good.
Good morning. It's Friday, Police Friday, August the 16th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer, the patriotic song of the day, and the headlines, we will have the patriotic shorts, motivation, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, the 33 strategies of war, and 400 things cops know. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. And now a little bit of entertainment from Stu Varney.
Your work from the DNC, and I know you'll be joining us as well next week.
I can only hope, and every day next week, I hope.
Awesome.
Good to see you. All right, good morning, Maria, and good morning, everyone. Today, Kamala Harris takes a gallop down the populist road. She's about to reveal her economic plan. She's turning left again. She will tackle inflation with price controls. Price gouging will be investigated. Excessive profits outlawed. Harris will also offer taxpayer help to struggling voters. $25,000 for first-time home buyers. Up to 1 million people could qualify. The proposal will be outlined in a speech in North Carolina. This is the day Harris tries to break free of the unpopular Bidenomics. Trump, meanwhile, held a press conference. He stayed on message. He wants tax cuts, more energy production, rolling back regulations, and canceling electric vehicle mandates. He took numerous questions. Harris has not sat down for an interview in 26 days. Let's get to the markets. For stocks this is shaping up to be the best week this year. Big gains Thursday, a little bit of pullback today, though. The Dow off 100, NASDAQ also off 100. Interest rates at relatively low levels. The 10-year yields well under 4%, 3.88 this morning. And the 2-year just above 4%, 4.04. Bitcoin still around $58,000, 57.8 to be precise. Oil's in limbo, waiting for the expected fight between Israel and Iran. $76 a barrel. Gas down 1 cent, 3.43. Diesel down 1 cent, 3.75. On the show today, you will not believe the choice of pronouns offered to job applicants of the Harris campaign. You can stay mainstream with he, him, she, her, they, them. I got that. But what about who? There's more where that came from. I guess Kamala is going to stay very woke. Friday, August 16th, 2024, Varney & Company is about to begin.
Thank you. And now, cars.
It is illegal to drive one of these on the road here in Colorado. The other one completely fine. A 1945 military Jeep. It does maybe 42 miles an hour. It has almost no brakes. What about seatbelts? Nope, no seatbelts. The steering wheel will impale you in any kind of collision, and it's got less doors than a Boeing mid-flight. Option number 2 is this 1997 Honda. It's got modern fuel injection, pretty good emissions capabilities, full seatbelts on the inside with headrest. It's got real brakes. It'll pretty comfortably do 55, 60 miles an hour. It's a modern vehicle. It is not permitted to be driven on the road in Colorado or a lot of the states in the U.S. because this is an imported car, and there is a big fight against these K-trucks. Yet that 80-year-old death trap, most states are like, yep, completely fine, don't need seatbelts. What is going on?
What is up, guys? So if you have Apple CarPlay in your car, but not wireless Apple CarPlay, I'm going to show you an easy way to fix that. So first, you need to grab one of these. Basically, it's a wireless adapter for wireless CarPlay, and it looks like this. All you do is plug that into your USB, go to your Bluetooth, click CarPlay box. Once this code shows up, just hit pair. Now just confirm you want to use CarPlay. And now you have wireless CarPlay.
One of your favorite diesels, the 7.3, it's a 2000 F350. Let me show you what we got. This thing was leaking from everywhere, exhaust, the up pipes, the exhaust manifolds. So we pulled the exhaust manifold off. We had a few bolts that were broken off, studs. A lot of rust and pitting on the head, but I think we'll be okay. And he didn't want to pull the heads off and have them resurfaced. But let me show you what we got here. This is what 20 years of salt and corrosion will do to bolts. Now this one here that broke off, you can see what we did is we welded a nut on there. And that bolt wouldn't come out. We had to take a die grinder behind there and cut that off. But boy, the corrosion. I don't know, you guys see a lot of this? We do see this in Utah. I'll bet you see a ton of it back east where they slurry the roads. We took the turbo out to do the up pipes because they were leaking. We had to actually cut them off because the bolt wouldn't come off. But then we found this.
Superbird race car valued at approximately $200,000. Overnight, it was stolen. Police officer called our task force and said, hey, this is what we got. Obtained search warrants, 2.5-acre property, came across the Superbird race car. The subject at that location in Colton was known to have a lot of weapons, ammunition, and that sort of thing. We recovered another stolen Lexus, about 20,000 rounds of ammunition, 20 stolen guns, including a World War II era Mauser with the swastikas and eagle still stamped into the receiver of the weapon. Numerous items of Hell's Angels paraphernalia. Located a vehicle there with a bunch of bullet holes in the back of it. On talking to the mom of how those bullet holes came to be, she said her son got angry at her one day, and as she drove away, he capped off a bunch of rounds at her. Due to the legal climate in California, this particular gentleman was released with 285 days of weekends.
And it ends up turning out to be a rap video for the YouTube star Jake Paul. He goes, okay, so could you drift around another car if I stood on top of it? I said, yeah, most likely I could. And every lap, I'm going about 5 miles an hour faster. All of a sudden, I'm doing 60. And I had just drifted about 6 feet outside of the line I was taking. And right after that is my wing, this big, huge chassis-mounted wing, which I thought was really cool, makes the car look really unique, ends up completely smashing into the side of this prop. Luckily not hitting the prop and moving it and knocking it over onto anybody because there were people standing around it, but it just demolishes the wing. And Jake Paul, I'm pretty sure his line was, you know, his rap video title was Randy Savage. So he comes running over and he goes, Randy Savage, we broke a Lamborghini. And sure enough, we definitely demolished the rear wing of that car.
And we went over to the only place that had cars, and it happened to be the place that we are banned from. So he takes me back, the whole time got my hands crossed over my chest like this, covering all the logos. I saw a white base model Camaro. And I said, what about that car way over there? And he pulls it up, and I go, it's perfect. So I went out in the skid pad, and I was doing donuts and whatnot. I think I just got to have enough tread left to get this back to the rental car place. Brakes are already gone, just get it back. They won't know a thing. And I pull out of the front gate. The security guard, red in the face, yelling at me. He says, who's doing donuts over there? Get the guy doing donuts to stop. Don't worry, sir. I know who it was. I've talked to him. He's not going to be doing it anymore. Got the smoke still billowing out of the car at the time. He goes, are you sure? I said, he's done. I've already spoken with him. He won't be a problem. As a matter of fact, he's leaving right now. Drove off, dropped the keys off, say thanks so much, email me the receipt, and you walk away very quickly.
I sold this set.
And that was Cars. Thank you. And now, the shorts.
She had just turned 18 and decided to quit high school to study metallurgy to assist the war effort. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor, her job was testing tensile strength of propellers at the Curtiss Wright plant in New Jersey. Her name was Florence Fawley, and she would leave that job to join the Marine Corps, where she quickly rose to become a drill instructor in charge of 150 women in the newly created Women Reserves. It was there that her ID photo caught the eye of Marine brass, and she became the Marine Corps recruiting poster model. While her face adorned billboards, posters, and magazine ads, she was also given a top-secret assignment that remains classified to this day. I can't reveal what it was, but I was selected because I was pretty, she would confess years later in an interview, leaving many to speculate on it. Florence remained married to World War II ace Brad Fawley for 68 years, until they passed away within months of each other at age 93.
And that was the shorts. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, a little bit of motivation.
It's one thing to believe when you got money in your pocket. It's one thing to believe when your marriage is working out and you got your health and your children acting like they got good sense. It's easy to believe then. Oh, but when you get that diagnosis, say you ain't gonna be here long. When you lose your job, when someone you thought you'd be with for the rest of your life said, no, we can't do this no more. There will be times when you will feel alone, when you will feel deserted, when you'll feel weak and you'll doubt yourself and other people will doubt you and you ask yourself, am I crazy? Maybe I am dreaming. Maybe I don't have what it takes. That's going to happen.
It is literally at the darkest moment when it dawns. You don't really even get to the next level to your darkest moments. Stop tripping when it get dark and you running. You running from your success. Like, why would you do something for 10 years, then quit? Why would you do something for 11 years, then quit? So for a lot of you, if you was going to quit, you should have quit when you put your first grand in it. You like 20,000 deep now. You like 9,800 hours deep into it. It only take 10,000 hours.
Pain doesn't leave us the same. It's like problems. It's like failure. It moves us. It either moves us forward and we get better, or we have a wrong attitude and it moves us backward and then we get bitter.
You don't get to choose when or why you go through pain. That's out of your control. But you always get to decide how you respond, how you handle it, what you do about it.
Life is tough. You may have been overlooked, underrated, overshadowed, underestimated. You may not have the money, the resources, the perfect genetics, or the perfect past. But I tell you this, if you have a 5-letter word called heart, that is all you will ever need. You are the hero you have been waiting for. And see, the hero cannot start at the top. That's a boring movie. The only way you can start at the top is if you're digging a hole. The greater the challenge, the greater the growth. As long as your heart says yes, you can overcome a million no's. You will face doubters. They all have the same disease. It's called possibility blindness. They can only see with their eyes. It is literally necessary to have haters to be doubted. This whole world will discourage you. People will try to ruin you. But if you follow your heart, you can dodge the bullets that they shoot at you. You can build a mansion with the bricks that they throw at you. Just make the decision now for the future you.
We've got to auto-correct the negativity. We don't look at the problem. We look at the solution. We don't look at the story of us losing. We look at the story of us winning. And we tell ourselves that by continually selling ourselves on our own life. This is the vision I have for my life. This is the way it's going to be. These are my goals. This is who I am. This is my plan. These are my values. And I don't need anyone to validate me. I don't need anyone to believe in me. All I need to do is execute and believe in the work.
I'm not going to rest until I have it. It's necessary. I'm going to do it. It's on me. No one's going to make it happen for me. I get some help and assistance, but I know that it's on me. Will it be easy? No, it's going to be hard, but it doesn't matter what it costs. If it's hard, I'll do it hard until I make it happen.
And I know that when I'm done, the result will be there and it will feel amazing.
You must trust. That's when you must believe. This is what I'm supposed to do. And when something happens to you, don't experience it as a failure, as a defeat. Look at it and find out, what is it that I didn't know? What is it that I can learn from this experience? It's done. When people have that kind of determination, when they don't allow what they don't have to become a factor, when they don't allow what the odds are to really matter, when they are constantly looking and seeking to find a way to make it happen, that's when the universe yields to you. That's when you start operating at a higher level of beingness. That's when it almost seems magical as you are able to speak the word and things begin to materialize.
Sometimes when you don't know what to do and you don't know what to say and you don't know how long it's going to be, all you can do to express your fight, just keep on walking. I don't know where the money's going to come from, but keep on walking. I don't know when the problem's going to get fixed, but keep on walking. It was good they rejected you. It was good you didn't get the job. It was good that it didn't happen the way you imagined it.
The harder the battle, the sweeter the victory. Oh, it's sweet to you. It's good to you. Why? See, when it's hard and there's a struggle, what you become in the process is more important than the dream. That's far more important. The kind of person you become, the character that you build, the courage that you develop, the faith that you're manifesting. Oh, it's something that you get up in the morning, you look yourself in the mirror, you're a different kind of person. You walk with a different kind of spirit. And people know that you know what life is, that you have embraced life. You know it was hard, but you did it hard.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the Daily Stoic.
Hero or Nero? Our soul is sometimes a king and sometimes a tyrant. A king, by attending to what is honorable, protects the good health of the body in its care, and gives it no base or sordid command. But an uncontrolled, desire-fueled, overindulged soul is turned from a king into that most feared and detested thing, a tyrant. Seneca, Moral Letters, 114.24. There is that saying that absolute power corrupts absolutely. At first glance, that's true. Seneca's pupil Nero and his litany of crimes and murders is a perfect example. Another emperor, Domitian, arbitrarily banished all philosophers from Rome. Epictetus was forced to flee as a result. Many of Rome's emperors were tyrants, yet not many years later, Epictetus would become a close friend of another emperor, Hadrian, who would help Marcus Aurelius to the throne, one of the truest examples of a wise philosopher king. So it's not so clear that power always corrupts. In fact, it looks like it comes down, in many ways, to the inner strength and self-awareness of individuals, what they value, what desires they keep in check, whether their understanding of fairness and justice can counteract the temptation of unlimited wealth and deference. The same is true for you, both personally and professionally. Tyrant or king, hero or Nero, which will you be?
And that was the Daily Stoic. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Bishop Robert Barron.
This is Bishop Barron. Just a few days ago, I was in Indianapolis for the marvelous celebration of the Eucharistic Congress. 50,000 Catholics coming together to worship the Lord and celebrate the real presence of Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. So I come from that experience, and I come home, and I love the Olympics, so I turn on the opening ceremonies of the Olympics. What do I see now? And it's in Paris, France, a city I love. I spent 3 years as a doctoral student there. What do I see but this gross mockery of the Last Supper? And I won't describe it any further. Just go online. It's gone viral. You can see it. But this France felt evidently, as it's trying to put its best cultural foot forward, the right thing to do is to mock this very central moment in Christianity where Jesus, at his Last Supper, gives his body and blood in anticipation of the cross. And so it's presented, though, as this gross, sort of flippant mockery. France, which used to be called the eldest daughter of the church, Paris, that gave us Thomas Aquinas taught there, and Vincent de Paul was there, King Louis IX, St. Louis, France that sent Catholic missionaries all over the world. France, whose culture, and I mean the honoring of the individual and of human rights and of freedom, is grounded very much in Christianity, felt the right thing to do was to mock the Christian faith. A question I would pose, we all know the answer to it. Would they ever have dared mock Islam in a similar way? Would they ever have dreamed of mocking in this gross, public way a scene from the Quran? As I say, we all know the answer to that. I think, folks, what's interesting here is this deeply secularist postmodern society knows who its enemy is. They're naming it, and we should believe them. They're telling us who they are. We should believe them. But furthermore, we Christians, we Catholics should not be sheepish. We should resist. We should make our voices heard.
And that was Bishop Robert Barron. And the one thing that he doesn't do that nobody has done, it just occurred to me, is use the O word, offended and offensive. The left will say, I'm offended, right? Because it's power. Because you can't get into their mind and say that they're not. Nobody can reach in their chest and figure out what their feelings are and say and deny the fact that they're offended. So it's a power thing. I dare you to say that I'm not offended. But the issue really isn't whether or not you're offended. The issue is the behavior offensive, and that it was in this particular case. This was offensive, and Bishop Barron would have done better to state that, come out and make the moral statement, this is offensive, and then say what it is that he believes the Olympic Church should do, or Olympic Committee should do. I would say at the very least, apologize for it and promise never to do it again. But the key word there again, this was offensive. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the Ayn Rand thought of the day. Quote, hatred of the good for being the good means hatred of that which one regards as good by one's own judgment. It means hatred of a person for possessing a value or virtue one regards as desirable. If a child wants to get good grades in school, but is unable or unwilling to achieve them and begins to hate the children who do, that is hatred of the good. If a man regards his intelligence as a value, but is troubled by self-doubt and begins to hate the men he judges to be intelligent, that is hatred of the good, unquote. And I would add beauty. How many times do you hear, have you heard in the past people say, don't hate me because I'm beautiful? That's another example of hatred of the good for being the good. And that's Ayn Rand from The Age of Envy and the book, The Return of the Primitive. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the 33 strategies of war.
Keys to warfare. The most common form of defense in old-fashioned warfare was the fortress, or walled city, and military leaders strategized for centuries about how to take such structures. The fortress presented a simple problem. It was designed to be impenetrable, to require such an effort to take it that unless doing so was strategically essential, an army would tend to pass it by. The conventional strategy against the fortress was to scale or breach its walls using siege engines and battering rams. Often that meant first besieging it, creating around it circles, known as lines of circumvallation and contravallation, that would prevent supplies and reinforcements from coming in and the defenders from leaving. The city's inhabitants would slowly starve and weaken, making it possible eventually to breach the walls and take the castle. These sieges tended to be quite long and bloody. Over the centuries, however, certain enlightened strategists hit upon a different way to bring down the walls. Their strategy was based on a simple premise. The apparent strength of the fortress is an illusion, for behind its walls are people who are trapped, afraid, even desperate. The city's leaders have essentially run out of options. They can only put their faith in the fortress's architecture. To lay siege to these walls is to mistake the appearance of strength for reality. If in fact the walls are hiding great weaknesses within, then the proper strategy is to bypass them and aim for the interior. This can be done literally by digging tunnels beneath the walls, undermining their strength, a conventional military strategy. A better, more devious route is to infiltrate people inside them or to work with the city's disaffected inhabitants. This is known as opening an inner front.
finding a group on the inside who will work on your behalf to spread discontent and will eventually betray the fortress into your hands, sparing you a long siege. In late January 1968, the North Vietnamese launched the famous Tet Offensive against the South Vietnamese and American armies. Among their targets was Hue, the ancient capital of Vietnam and a city of great religious significance for the Vietnamese people. In the center of Hue is a massive fort called the Citadel, and within the Citadel is the Imperial Palace compound, the heart and soul of Hue. The Citadel has incredibly thick and high walls and is surrounded on all sides by water. In 1968, it was guarded by American soldiers and their allies. Yet the North Vietnamese were somehow able to take the Citadel with remarkable ease. They held it for several weeks, then disappeared from Hue as if by magic after a massive U.S. counterattack. The Citadel was unimportant to them as a physical or strategic possession. What they were after was the symbolism of being able to take it, showing the world that American invincibility was a myth. The capture of the Citadel was a remarkable feat, and this is how it was done. Months before Tet, the North Vietnamese began to infiltrate men into the city and to organize those of their sympathizers who already lived in Hue and worked inside the Citadel. They got hold of detailed plans of the fortress, which allowed them to dig elaborate tunnels under its walls. They were also able to leave stockpiles of weapons at key points. During the Tet holiday, they infiltrated even more of their men into the city dressed as peasants. Confederates inside the fortress helped them to overrun some of the guard posts and open the gates. Melting into the local population, they made it impossible for the Citadel's defenders to distinguish friend from foe. Finally, having reconnoitered the location of the concentrated command structure inside the Citadel, the North Vietnamese were able to take it out right away, leaving the defenders unable to communicate with one another. This created mass confusion, and in the process, the defense of the Citadel collapsed. The North Vietnamese called this strategy the blooming lotus. It has deep roots in Asian military thinking, and its applications go far beyond war. Instead of focusing on the enemy's formidable front, on capturing key points in the periphery of its defenses and finding a way through them, the traditional Western approach, the lotus strategy aims first and foremost at the center, the soft and vulnerable parts within. The goal is to funnel soldiers and Confederates into this central area by whatever means possible, and to attack it first in order to spread confusion. Rather than trying to penetrate defenses, it infiltrates them. This includes the minds of the enemy soldiers and officers, strategizing to get under their skin, to unbalance their reasoning powers, to soften them up from within. As with the lotus flower, everything unfolds from the center of the target. The basic principle here is that it is easiest to topple a structure, a wall, a group, a defensive mind, from the inside out. When something begins to rot or fall apart from within, it collapses of its own weight. A far better way to bring it down than ramming yourself against its walls. In attacking any group, the Lotus strategist thinks first of opening an inner front. Confederates on the inside will provide valuable intelligence on the enemy's vulnerabilities. They will silently and subtly sabotage him. They will spread internal dissension and division. The strategy can weaken the enemy to the point where you can finish him off with a penetrating blow. It can also bring down the enemy in and of itself. A variation on the Lotus strategy is to befriend your enemies, worming your way into their hearts and minds. As your target's friend, you will naturally learn their needs and insecurities, the soft interior they try so hard to hide. Their guard will come down with a friend. And even later on, when you play out your treacherous intentions, the lingering resonance of your friendship will still confuse them, letting you keep on manipulating them by toying with their emotions or pushing them into overreactions. For a more immediate effect,
You can try a sudden act of kindness and generosity that gets people to lower their defenses. The Trojan horse strategy. For 10 long years, the Greeks battered the walls of Troy to no effect. The simple gift of a wooden horse let them sneak a few men into Troy and open the gates from within. The lotus strategy is widely applicable. When confronted by something difficult or thorny, do not be distracted or discouraged by its formidable outer appearance. Think your way into the soft core, the center from which the problem blossoms. Perhaps the source of your problem is a particular person. Perhaps it is yourself and your own stale ideas. Perhaps it is the dysfunctional organization of a group. Knowing the problem's core gives you great power to change it from the inside out. Your first thought must always be to infiltrate to the center, whether in thought or in action, never to wail away at the periphery or just pound at the walls.
And that was the 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene. Back in a minute. Thank you. And if you're a Democrat, you want to vote Republican because the late modern achievement subject is free, in that it does not encounter repression on the part of sovereign entities external to itself. But in reality, it is just as unfree as the obedient subject. Once exterior repression is overcome, pressure builds within. Thus, the achievement subject develops depression. The violence persists unabated. It merely shifts to the interior. The stages of the topological transformation of violence are decapitation in the sovereignty society, deformation in the disciplinary society, and depression in the achievement society. Violence is increasingly internalized, psychologized, and thus rendered invisible. More and more, it rids itself of the negativity of the other or the enemy, becoming self-referential. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Mornings with Maria.
Well, welcome back. President Trump's lawyers are requesting that his sentencing in the New York criminal trial be delayed until after the November election. Lauren Simonetti with the details now. Lauren.
Good morning, Maria. The 45th president's initial sentencing was July 11th, just days before the Republican National Convention, but Judge Juan Merchan agreed to delay it until September the 18th. Trump attorney Todd Blanche argues the case should be dismissed outright, but that if the sentencing is needed, why rush it? He wrote a letter to the judge saying, quote, setting aside naked election interference objectives, there is no valid countervailing reason for the court to keep the current sentencing data on the calendar. They're trying everything. Get rid of the gag, get rid of the judge for conflict of interest. It's not working.
Okay, so there you go. Up until the last comment where she said it's not working, you could make the argument that it's news. Who, what, where, when, and how. And then she throws in the commentary. It's not working. And this is what frustrates me so much and irritates me to no end is the conflation of news, commentary, and analysis. Separate them. Do the news, have a My Take type segment, and then you can editorialize to your heart's content. But you shouldn't be putting all of that together. It's, again, it's just confusing, irritating, and annoying. Back in a minute. Thank you. So price gouging, that's the latest tool from the Harris camp, and it's ineffective. It's just a desperate gamble to regain some sort of popularity. She's grossly unpopular. Nobody likes her. Her own staff doesn't like her. The news media doesn't like her. They refuse to interview her. Mr. Shapiro, who is her original going to be originally her vice presidential candidate, he doesn't like her. He doesn't want to have anything to do with her. She's absolutely unpopular, and this is her bid, her desperate bid to try to be liked, and it's not working. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Chapter 3 of 400 Things Cops Know by Adam Plantinga.
Chapter 3. 29 things cops know about tactics and hazards. Prepare for the unthinkable as though it was inevitable. Tim McClung, Chief of Police, Perkins Township, Ohio. 1. Never leave a locked door behind you on an assignment. If things go bad while you're inside a building and you need help, you don't want your backup slowed by a locked door. Use handcuffs to prop it open or a business card slipped over the lock. 2. Be prepared for a gunfight. Always have an idea where you could go for cover if bullets start flying, and quickly assess the difference between cover, an engine block, which will stop bullets, and mere concealment, drywall, the thin metal of a car door, which will hide you only from the gunman's view. Run through various shooting scenarios with your partner, and debrief after hot runs, where deadly force could have potentially been used. Preparation and the right mindset are everything. They separate the living from the dead. 3. If you're a male officer who has just taken a hard blow to the groin, hop up and down on your heels to speed your recovery. It isn't everything, but it can take the edge off. It can reduce the pain from, say, a 10 to an 8. That's pretty significant, because when you've taken a testicle shot, you need all the help you can get. 4. If you have only 2 cops to check a house for a suspect, pile up trash cans, bikes, and children's toys at the rear door. That way, if the bad guy tries to flee out the back while you and your partner are checking the front, you'll slow him down and make him give away his position with all the racket he'll create trying to get over your homemade barrier. 5. Don't roll your window down for a prisoner you're transporting to the station, even if he says he's sick and needs to throw up. While in the back seat, he may have slipped one cuff off his abnormally skinny wrist, so when you lower the window, he can just reach through it, open the car door from the outside, wait until you've stopped, and then sprint madly away and disappear into the woods. Such an incident could potentially make the local news. Especially don't do this while you're still on probation, and can, at best, be hit with a lengthy suspension, and can, at worst, be fired without appeal. There are unconfirmed reports that such an incident happened to me. Okay, maybe they're confirmed. 6. Studies have shown that on average, if you are 21 feet away from a subject armed with a knife, that person can run up and stab you before you can draw your gun, aim, and fire. Even if the suspect is more than 21 feet away, they can still throw that knife at you and embed it in your chest. You don't really think about this scenario until you've actually had a knife thrown at you. Then it becomes all you think about. Many police academies contain mock towns that are like miniaturized versions of the FBI's Hogan's Alley, where they conduct scenario-based training that incorporates concepts like the 21-foot rule. The streets in these towns are typically named after the department's fallen officers. 7. Anything that weighs 2 pounds or more can hurt you. Bricks weigh that much. So do guns. This means that if you see a suspect with anything bulky in a pocket, a pat-down search for weapons is warranted. As you move in to conduct the search, it's good to ask the person if they have any weapons on them or anything sharp that might cut you. Most law-abiding or even semi-law-abiding people say no. Any response other than that should set off alarm bells. For instance, if someone hesitates or says something vague like, "I don't want any problems," they are either immediately going in handcuffs or getting taken straight to the ground. Why wait to get cut or shot? People who hem and haw in response to a straightforward question about whether they're armed usually are. 8.
These days, in the era of color-coded terror alerts, people will see an abandoned suitcase on the sidewalk or an unattended toolbox in a bus shelter, and they'll call it in as a suspicious package. When you show up on the scene, you don't have to immediately get on the phone with the Undersecretary of Defense. You do some threat assessment first. Sure, the package looked odd to the caller, but does it look odd to you? Would you have called the police yourself if you had seen it? Is the package in front of a high-profile target like an embassy or circuit court? As for more obvious warning signs, is it humming or beeping? Are there any exposed wires? Has anyone called in a bomb threat recently? If you do decide to treat it as an explosive device, you block off traffic, clear out pedestrians, and stay off the air, as radio waves can potentially set off explosives. Then you wait for the bomb squad, who will come out and do their thing with their armored suits and robots and mobile X-ray machines. If the package turns out to be harmless, the bomb squad will never criticize your decision to call them out. At least, not to your face. Who knows what they do back at the bomb squad HQ between screenings of the Hurt Locker. But given that it takes the bomb squad a while to gear up, given that you're tying up a lot of manpower and resources on what could be a big nothing, and considering that in a large urban area people leave stray crap around all the time, sometimes you just go in and check it out yourself. If such a decision is made, you don't draw straws or do rock, paper, scissors to decide which patrol cop is going to be on point. There is a simple, time-honored system in place to handle such a scenario. The newest officer automatically goes in. He or she then has the option to strap on their riot helmet complete with plastic faceplate, which is supposed to offer some measure of head protection from bricks and bottles thrown from hostile crowds, but isn't rated against explosives. Any potential blast, after blowing off your unprotected arms and legs, would probably just fuse the helmet to your skull. But you still sometimes don the helmet when approaching a potential bomb, if only for moral support. So, you check out the package. Even if you think such a decision is reasonable, you're still half wondering if there's some crazed bomber with a remote detonator watching you from afar with a telescopic lens. You know that if you open the package and see an electric counter ticking down 3, 2, 1, you're going to have just enough time to feel like a jackass before you are rendered airborne. 9. Cops love coffee, but you have to be prepared to dump your whole cup out the window if you get a high-priority call. There are no cup holders in the squad car, so if you speed off with lights and siren and you don't dump it, it will invariably end up in a scalding pool on your groin. 10. Never park your squad car in front of the address you're sent to, no matter how routine the assignment sounds. They call this parking spot the kill zone because it immediately puts you in harm's way. Sure, you may have only been sent into a barking dog complaint, but why is that dog barking? Maybe it's because of the home invasion armed robbery in progress at the dog owner's house. So don't be lazy. Park half a block down and scope out the scene as you approach. These are uncertain times. 11. If you respond to a mass casualty incident like a multiple car pileup, shooting spree, or natural disaster, there's no time to wait for the medics to sort things out. You have to triage right away. For starters, you want to get anyone who can walk to move to one side so you can concentrate on those most seriously injured. Have everyone else sound off so you know who's conscious. If someone isn't breathing, open their airway and give them one breath. If that doesn't work under normal circumstances, you'd reposition the head and try to breathe again and possibly start CPR. But in a mass casualty incident, you don't have the luxury of that kind of time. If that one breath doesn't do it, they're dead. And there's no time for hand-wringing. Move on. Someone else needs you more. 12. You take a lot of assignments where people are screaming at each other and they don't stop screaming when you arrive. In fact, the screaming sometimes intensifies, as if those present know that now they're safe in saying anything they want to say to the other party because the police will prevent things from getting violent, or because everyone wants to show you how upset they are so you'll take their side.
Every cop handles the noise differently. Some officers will try to outshout people. Others will adopt more creative tactics. One cop told me he likes to sit down with the newspaper while people shriek all around him. Gradually, the din lessens, and people look at him in a confused, "Hey, that cop is reading the paper" kind of way. Once everyone is calm, he commences with his investigation. 13. As a cop, your life is threatened regularly. Some threats are just drunken ramblings, but others have some weight behind them. Military vets with weapons training may threaten to shoot you between the eyes where your vest won't save you. Officers who are the linchpins in felony cases have had contracts put out on their lives. Cops who have shot and killed a suspect in the line of duty now have to contend with the friends and family of the deceased, some of whom may seek vengeance. These officers live in fear of violence to their loved ones and take home police radios in case they have to call for backup. If you're a police officer, your home isn't always your castle after all. 14. There's a street weapon out there that looks like a tube of lipstick, but when the bearer twists the head, a wicked-looking blade comes up instead of the cosmetic. Surprise! You thought I was going to color my lips, but now I'm carving a divot out of your jaw. The list of exotic street weapons available to criminals also includes belt-buckle knives, cell phone guns, and a .25 Derringer that can be completely concealed within a wallet. Criminals have been known to paint red tips on working handguns so they look fake, and to disguise a shotgun as a super soaker squirt gun. It's rare to run across any of these implements unless you're trying to arrest Maxwell Smart, but it's good to know they're out there. Their existence is enough to make you both cautious and distrustful in a profession that already lends itself to extreme paranoia. 15. Write your blood type on your ballistic vest in large print. If you get shot, you'll be asked your type in the trauma room, but in the heat of the moment you may not remember it, or you may not be in any condition to talk. In which case, the ER staff will strip off your uniform shirt and know where to look for it. 16. Cover all wounds, even the tiniest ones. The people you will come into contact with will not be paragons of hygiene, and some will teem with easily transmittable diseases. Wear cut-resistant gloves to ward off the uncapped syringes and uncovered razor blades that will be in the pockets of those you arrest. Also, wear gloves. Sometimes you'll grab someone and your bare hand will stick to him because this particular chap hasn't showered in 6 months. 17. As a cop, if you're given an assignment, you don't call other people to handle it. You're hardwired to go in there and take care of things yourself. Sometimes this mentality can hurt you. My partner and I were once called by a landlord to deal with a guy who was huffing paint in his room. The smell was overpowering. We tried to call him out into the hallway, but no one emerged. So we went in, both of us holding our breath, eyes stinging from the fumes. The guy sat on the bed, a can of industrial-strength paint thinner at his side, and a sock soaked in thinner clutched in his hand. His eyes were glassy, and his mouth hung open as if he were about to ask a question. We hauled him outside, drew in fresh air, and called him an ambulance. Then we realized that this whole time he'd been holding both a lighter and cigarettes. We later mulled over what would have happened if the guy had lit up a smoke in that room. We figured the subsequent explosion would have showered all of our body parts over a full city block. Regardless if the guy lit up, it was a small miracle that the thinner fumes hadn't ignited the pilot light to the stove. My partner and I both laughed afterward, more out of relief than anything else, as we contemplated our potentially fiery demise. 300 feet is the minimum safe distance when dealing with a potential explosive. That's a football field or 12 houses. We weren't 300 feet away. We were 0 feet away. The lesson we came away with is to leave the hazmat situations to the fire department. It wouldn't kill the firefighters to take an occasional break from surfing Match.com at the station house or primping for next year's calendar to get out there and work for a living. 18. Wear a cheap wristwatch at work, because it will invariably get hooked on a fence when you're chasing a suspect, or scratched up when you have to take someone to the ground. Some cops don't wear their wedding rings at work for that same reason. The ring could get hooked on a fence and tear off part of their finger. Others don't wear their rings for, well, other reasons. I like to fornicate, a married cop once told me cheerfully. 19. You get plenty of EVOC, Emergency Vehicle Operation Course, training as a cop. Not just in the academy, but at subsequent police in-services. But no matter how many times the EVOC instructors remind you to get to your assignment safely or you won't get there at all, no matter how often they advise you that the squad car's lights and siren don't magically protect you or the public against wrecks, you always have at least one moment, especially when you're new, when you respond lights and siren to a high-priority call and push it too far. Maybe you slow for the red light, but still surge through without checking oncoming traffic and narrowly miss a T-bone collision. Or you take a corner too quickly on wet concrete and nearly hydroplane into a pedestrian. You're spurred on by the radio traffic of an armed robbery in progress or an officer on the air shouting for help. Get there is the mantra running through your head. All the lessons you learned in EVOC completely forgotten. But once you get one of these near misses under your belt, you continue on, shaken, vowing never to drive like that again. Your close call, a harrowing reminder of how quickly you can go from all is well to all is lost. 20. When you're going into a house on a hot call where the suspect is thought to still be on the scene, never hesitate in the doorway. You move fast and keep moving, because in the doorway, you are a prime target. Linger there and you might as well hang a bullseye around your neck. And if you take down one suspect, don't relax just yet. Look for his partner, the second guy. It's the second guy who will get you. 21. Especially if you work in a larger jurisdiction, odds are that at some point the President of the United States will pay a visit to your neck of the woods. Which means you will be working alongside the Secret Service, as they frequently enlist local cops to swing traffic and hold an outer perimeter. There is nothing that lets you know your relatively lowly place in the law enforcement universe more than working with the Secret Service. They are polite and professional, and they will continue to be polite and professional when they tell you that as a line cop, you are utterly expendable. They will shoot right through you in order to neutralize a threat to the POTUS. So if an assassin presents himself, forget any thoughts you may entertain of taking him down and earning a Medal of Valor. It isn't going to happen. You're not going to protect the president. The Secret Service is going to protect the president. And the only medal you might earn is the Purple Heart when the Secret Service riddles you with bullets because you have the misfortune of being in the same general area as the bad guy. It's not that they're bad shots, they're among the best. It's just that their training prescribes that protecting the leader of the free world is paramount, and that everything else runs a distant second. They have multiple hit teams waiting in the wings, guys who have probably been up for 24 hours and have advanced weaponry, and are chewing on caffeinated gum, who have trained and trained again for just this moment, and will respond to any foe with sudden and overwhelming force. You're only in the way. It's a strange concept to grasp at first because the typical cop mentality to meet danger head-on yourself is turned completely upside down when the Secret Service is involved. So what is the proper police response to take if one of these hit teams has to roll out? As one agent advised my partner in all sincerity, just lie down on the floor and pretend you're dead. 22. Some of the most polite criminals are the most lethal. They'll yes sir and no sir you ad nauseum, trying to lull you into complacency, while at the same time probing you for weaknesses as they contemplate fight or flight. Never let your guard down. Keep in mind the old law enforcement adage that sounds like a country song. The only person I trust is my mother, and I ain't even too sure about her. 23.
High-risk traffic stops are typically done when the police believe a car contains wanted felons or someone who is armed. If performed properly, the high-risk stop is crisp, orderly, and a fearsome thing to behold. 2 squad cars position themselves diagonally behind the suspect vehicle, and everyone assumes their specific roles. The driver of the backup squad covers the driver's side of the suspect vehicle with a shotgun, and the passenger of the backup squad covers the driver's side of the suspect vehicle, SV, with a handgun. The driver of the primary squad calls the play, giving the occupants of the SV step-by-step instructions over the PA, telling them to turn off the car, place the keys on top of the roof, slowly exit the vehicle, put their hands in the air, turn around slowly to see if they have any weapons in their waistband, walk backward to the sound of his voice, and finally, get down on the ground where an officer with handcuffs is waiting. Step by step, smooth, and by the numbers. The problem is sometimes you'll get a vehicle occupant who doesn't respect the process. I had that one night with the passenger in a stolen Ford Explorer. Her name was Vesna, and she was an eccentric English-speaking hooker from Czechoslovakia. When the cop on the PA began issuing instructions, Vesna stepped out of the car, casually smoking a cigarette, and looked bored. She ignored the rest of what the cop had to say. Instead, she merely squinted back at us and continued to take long pulls off her cigarette, looking around as if to say, "Can you believe this nonsense?" I was pointing a shotgun at her from 15 feet away, but she wasn't impressed with me or my crude noisemaker. Apparently, this was how they handled the police in Czechoslovakia. Her demeanor was so surreally inappropriate to the situation that I began to laugh. I couldn't help it. We ended up just walking up and grabbing her. Sometimes you skip a few steps. 24. If you're in a restaurant on duty and have to use the bathroom, don't leave your food or drink unattended. The odds of someone spitting in them or slipping you a Mickey are slight, but not worth the risk. Don't wear shirts bearing your department name outside work. You don't want strangers knowing you're a cop. Never have a police bumper sticker on your car unless you don't mind having all your windows broken out, perhaps by some anti-establishment types or a frustrated driver who just got his 3rd DUI. Bumper stickers are for firefighters. Everyone loves firefighters. Not everyone loves cops. Not even cops always love cops. 25. When you have your first potential jumper who is threatening suicide, thoughts of rescue will race through your head. Visions of saving the day. After all, you're a cop. This is what you do. But you have to hold yourself in check, because you don't know anything about this person. Maybe he wants some company in his plunge 200 feet down. You don't want to get into any death-defying heroics or a struggle over the precipice. What you want to do is talk to the guy while you're waiting for an official negotiator. Find out his name and call him by it. Get what you can of his story. It's often the classic hard luck tale. He's been fired. He has no family. He's got a terminal illness. He's got nobody who cares about him. It's reminiscent of something a boxer once said about growing old. First, you lose your reflexes, then you lose your job, then you lose your friends. You can try to talk all day, but the secret weapon with many jumpers is smokes. That's why you always want to have a pack of cigarettes in your duty bag. The sweet promise of a Newport Light, nay, the whole pack, has talked more than one suicidal soul off the ledge. Just don't forget the lighter. Cigarettes aren't much good without it. 26. In the movies, even the slightest cop knocks down a door in one kick. Real life is different. Once it took me 27 tries. I know this because there was a sergeant next to me counting out loud encouragingly. In terms of technique, striking the middle of the door doesn't do much. Instead, you want to aim just underneath the knob. And the most effective means of entry isn't the manly snap kick where you face the door with your shoulders squared, but rather the mule kick, where your back is to the door and you lash out with your foot like Eeyore.
Don't bother running into the door with your shoulder either. It looks cool, but you'll bruise like a peach, and the door will still be standing. If you show up at a call with a bunch of other cops and you do have to kick down a door, you will subsequently have a brief discussion about who has to do it. A conversation that you never hear on cop shows, but that takes place in real life all the time. One of you is maybe coming off back surgery, so he's out. Another one kicked in the last door. Someone wore sneakers to work instead of boots, so she's no good. Sometimes you just make the newest guy boot it in. He's probably all jazzed up to do it anyway. He'll batter it down and run in there like Leroy Jenkins. Once in a while, you will encounter a door you just can't get through. Maybe it's solid metal or it opens out instead of in. Then you have to call the fire department. They have all sorts of tools and mechanical spreaders to gain entry. But it's always a bit of a letdown to admit failure and call firefighters for this purpose. They find it to be a letdown as well because you just interrupted their 3-on-3 basketball tournament at the station to come out for this. 27. It is estimated that 90% of cop fatalities on duty involve officers making at some point a tactical error that results in their death. Maybe they went around a blind corner after a man with a gun, or sped through a red light after a fleeing stolen car without checking both ways. You never want to speak ill of the dead, but many of these fatalities could have been prevented. As Annie Dillard once wrote, danger is the safest thing in the world if you go about it right. That's why cops shouldn't rush into hot zones without backup or a plan. You aren't superhuman. You shouldn't act like it. 28. Don't try to yank an arrestee out of a car when the keys are still in it. First of all, pulling someone, especially someone with a significant center of mass, out of a car when they don't want to go is incredibly difficult. It's like trying to uproot a tree. But second, and more important, if the driver starts that sucker up and floors it while you're caught between the V formed by the open driver's side door and the body of the car, one of two things will occur. You will get flung or you will get dragged. Both of these outcomes can cause you a significant amount of pain and injury. I learned this firsthand. Experience is a hard teacher. 29. You must stay vigilant as a cop, even when all appears well. Because when you've just had a hearty meal or quitting time is ahead and you're planning your weekend, that's when the drunk driver smashes into your squad, or someone opens fire right in front of you. Don't try to unwind at work. You can relax once you get home. Complacency is the enemy. When asked how he was able to kill 4 cops at a Newhall, California gas station, convicted murderer Bobby Augusta Davis said, "They got careless, so I wasted them." Some officers, especially those who have been involved in shootings, take this vigilance to the point that they are reluctant to close their eyes in public, even off duty, not to catch a few winks on a long flight, not even in church during prayer. They want to always see what might be coming at them.
And that was Chapter 3 of 400 Things Cops Know, Street Smart Lessons from a Veteran Patrolman by Adam Plantinga. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there and reminding you that you are not neutral and that the government has no rights.